in the category of things that I didn't see coming was seeing somebody with the name, the profile, the reputation of star level of somebody like an Earl Thomas getting cut by a team who just signed him less than a year and a half ago, and not just cut by any team, but one of the true class organizations in the National Football League, in the Baltimore Ravens, a team that isn't necessarily well known for making huge, big splashes in free agency year in and year out, yet decided that they were going to do that with Earl Thomas because they felt like he was a difference maker, bringing a guy like him in to a situation where they are potentially a contender, that less than a year and a half after bringing him in, they decided, we good. We don't want no more parts of Earl Thomas at all. He can go away. And they showed him the door. Like, the whole development around this was very quick to me. And maybe it's because I've been out of the loop. Maybe it's because I wasn't aware of certain things that were potentially going on behind the scenes. But it just begs the bigger question to me is, what's wrong with Earl Thomas? Like, I don't get it. And here you are talking about a guy that when he was drafted out of Texas, what was it, the 14th overall pick in 2010, wasn't he a part of that same draft class with Russell Okung, Carroll and Schneider's first draft class in Seattle? This is the same guy that there was a lot of buzz and controversy around and second guessing around his selection in round one because Pete Carroll's guy from USC, Taylor Mays, was available. Remember that? Taylor Mays was supposed to be that guy. Taylor Mays was the one that a lot of people thought was going to be the better fit for his system. A lot of people were questioning, why wouldn't he take Taylor Mays? And here comes Earl Thomas, and all he is for the better part of almost the entire decade is a linchpin, a bedrock, a foundation piece of that Legion of Boom defense. You could make the argument that defense was built around him because he was the first piece. And then you bring in the guys like the Chancellors and the Richard Shermans of the world and Bobby Wagner in 2012. You look at the offense, obviously. They brought in Beast Mode in 2010. You bring in Russell Wilson in the draft in the third round in 2012. But you really look at it fundamentally. When you talk about the Seahawks and you talk about the decade that we just got out of, the decade that they had, as much as anybody, it was Earl Thomas that was the dude. It was Earl Thomas, along with Beast Mode, obviously, Marshawn Lynch, that started everything for this team. Lynch was the guy on offense, and Thomas was the guy on defense. And after all those years, after all the accomplishments, after all the great play, the Seahawks were willing to let him walk in free agency. Now, certainly part of that was just due to them making some financial decisions from a salary cap perspective, but some of that was due to they wanted to get some fresh blood in there and get some new leadership and clean out some elements of their locker room. And apparently they were willing to just see somebody like Earl Thomas walk out the door. Now, granted, there were some injury concerns there, so that can't be dismissed. But this is a dude that had meant a lot to that Seahawks organization. And after all those years, they were willing to let him lead. Thanks for everything, Earl. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you kind of situation. So now he comes into Baltimore. Baltimore gives him a big contract. He gets to come to a team with a young, exciting, dual-purpose quarterback in Lamar Jackson, part of an infrastructure of a really good Ravens defense, quality head coach in John Harbaugh, quality organization, just like so many good things you could say about Baltimore, unless you're a Steelers fan or something like that, then certainly feel free to harp away at them. So they bring you in, they give you big money, they want you to be that dude, they want you to be that difference maker. They want you to be an upgrade on Eric Weddle. They want you to be a lot of things. And then you start hearing things about he's showing up late to meetings because he's got to get his car washed. He's getting into verbal altercations with guys last year. Then he's throwing a complete and total bitch fit on the practice field this year. And it got to the point where the Ravens said, you know what? This is a very good, very talented player that can bring a lot to our defense, and we have a lot of money financially invested in him, and there are definitely significant consequences, at least in the short term, for financial impacts related to the salary cap. If we get rid of him, they took one look at it, and they said, you know what? It's about Ravens culture. He gone. Like, that's bad. You look at a team like the Ravens, they have a lot of reasons that they could have potentially overlooked this. They have a lot of reasons they could have potentially minimized or dismissed this, or at the very least addressed it, but addressed it in a way where they fined him, potentially suspended him. They didn't even take those steps. They just said, gone. We don't want you. So those are two quality organizations. Two organizations that do know what the hell they're doing. They have a track record of success to suggest that they do, that in the past 18 months or so have taken a look at Earl Thomas and said, no, we're good. Good luck elsewhere. Good luck in your future endeavors, to use a WWE phrase. One organization, there's years of success and emotional investment there. The other, a lot of financial investment and potential future investment there. And both of them said, we're good. Like, what does that say about Earl Thomas? Now, certainly you'll have Cowboys fans that are going to be chomping at the bit like, hey, this is our chance to finally get Earl Thomas and get him on the cheap. Pay him a little bit. It'll help the Ravens a little bit maybe in terms of the salary cap because of the offset, but they'll still have to pick up a good portion of the bill. We want Earl Thomas in Dallas. Do you? Like, do you really at this point? Because if the Seahawks had him, knew about him, and didn't want him anymore, and the Ravens had him, knew about him, and didn't want him anymore, why would you take the risk at this point? Like, what is wrong with Earl? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, it seems like it's more than just a prickly personality. It seems it's more than him just kind of being a pain in the ass to deal with. It seems like he's a significant pain in the ass to deal with, to the point where a guy that you would look to, an incredible player, a leader of men, should know better and conduct himself better and present himself better, and is no longer a leader of men. And that's heartbreaking. Because I just can't figure out for the life of me, like, how it's so hard to not be a jerk or a dick or a pain in the ass to this level, to where the Ravens said, no, we'll take the salary cap hit to cut your ass. Like, it can't be that hard. And maybe part of it is Earl Thomas hasn't really been in crappy situations. So he doesn't understand what crappy situations really are. Bit of an entitlement there, perhaps. Bit of a looking a gift horse in the mouth. I don't really know. And I don't know that I really care, other than trying to figure out what the heck is wrong with this guy. Like, you were getting closer to the tail end of your career. You frankly are probably at the tail end of your career. You would want to think you wouldn't want to go down the Antonio Brown route, which is doing those stupid kind of self-defeating, self-inflicted wounds type of things that would cost you millions of dollars. Your earning potential is growing smaller by the day. Your revenue potential is capping out. You would think this would be the time that you want to behave as much as possible to maximize on that as much as possible. And maybe he's in a financial position where he doesn't need to. And maybe he doesn't care anymore. Maybe that's part of the problem. And if that's the case, then if you don't want to be a good citizen and you don't want to play, then don't play. Perfectly entitled to do so. You've given the game a decade, should have no regrets, except maybe for this. Like, don't let this be the memory that everybody has of you. Don't let this be the matzo ball that hangs over your career and kind of drags it down. Because when you look at Earl Thomas, and again, this is not hyperbole, this is not dramatics, this is not recency bias. Like, he was that dude for the Seahawks. He was, along with Marshawn Lynch, the two bedrock pieces of that rebuild that eventually made them world champions. Like, guys like Chancellor did things that got a lot of attention. Guys like Richard Sherman did things that got a ton of attention, and both great players, certainly in their own right, on that Legion of Boom defense. But that defense doesn't happen without Earl Thomas, period. This is a guy, Pro Bowler, all pros. We should be talking at this stage of time about his future credentials for Canton and how good and strong they look and when he might go into the Hall of Fame someday. And instead, these are the types of things that could diminish them, potentially significantly reduce those possibilities, especially, in terms of once he did retire, potentially having to wait quite a long time to get in there. And that would be a tragedy and really, really sad. So I don't know what's wrong with him. I obviously don't know the man. I just got to ask, like, what is the big deal with you, man? Like, why are you being like this? I certainly am not advocating for you to just shut up and make your money and that's it. No, it's more so asking you, like, show up, be a grown up, and stop being such a pain in the ass to deal with. It's not that hard. You should try it before it costs you millions of dollars and your rightful place in Canton. Unbelievable. Now, sure, somebody eventually, either immediately or in the near future, will probably take a look at Earl Thomas and say, you know what, it's worth the risk because he's talent. And as a result, he might not learn much of a lesson. But hopefully, maybe he gets into another situation. Maybe the environment is different. Maybe he gets along better with leadership there, coaching, front office, and maybe he doesn't have any of these issues. Just a bit of a red flag to me. Like, even if the Bears needed a free safety right now, I'd have to look at Earl Thomas and look at those two situations by significantly better run organizations and say, if they didn't want him, why would mine? And it would still leave me with the fundamental question, like, what's wrong with Earl Thomas?